Hackett, you're looking at the cream of the crop. That's a plenty fine job, but Uncle Sam didn't make it. Look at that border. Those sharp lines. This one's on the level. Compare them. See the difference?
Guess I owe you an apology. Yeah, it's queer, all right, but you have to look awful close. Sorry I didn't tumble the first time, but I had to be sure.
Oh, think nothing of it. I'd have done the same thing in your place.
Trapped, from 1949, was the exciting story of the United States Treasury Department and their battle against the fiendish crime of counterfeiting, a crime of dire nature to the American economy. All right, maybe that's a boring way to describe it. It's actually an enjoyable crime film featuring a heist. It stars Lloyd Bridges, Barbara Payton, and John Hoyt. I'll give a summary of the film, spoiler-free, and then offer some closing thoughts.
The Treasury Department is your symbol of service and protection and has been since 1789. Its responsibilities are great and its duties far-reaching.
Well, the film opens up with a brief mini-documentary about the U.S. Treasury Department. And you know, it's actually kind of interesting stuff from a 1940s historical point of view, seeing all these people working in the different agencies, you know, and the IRS, boo! But it's still very educational. And from this introduction, we learn about the details of counterfeiting. And we see, oh, poor Mrs. Flaherty got ripped off with a counterfeit bill at the bank and won't get her money. However, the bill is sent to the Secret Service in Washington to examine, and they determine that it appears to be the handiwork of Tris Stewart, a notorious counterfeiter who's currently serving time in lockup. So some of the agents go to visit him in prison, and we're introduced to Tris, who's played here by Lloyd Bridges, and they tell him what's going on and ask if he would be willing to work with them for a reduced sentence. But he's not ready to play ball just yet. However, we cut ahead several weeks, and we see there's Tris. He's being transported on a bus with a deputy marshal. Now, a car pulls in front of the bus, and Tris uses this opportunity to grab the gun from the marshal who's asleep next to him and make his escape. However, we soon discover that Tris is escaping with the help of a federal agent named Foreman, played by Robert Carnes. It's all part of their elaborate ruse so that he has a cover story about his escape. And he has agreed to help these agents with finding the counterfeiters in exchange for that early parole they promised. However, once at the hotel, that sneaky character Tris makes a break for it. He overpowers the agent, and he runs out into the night. Well, we cut over to a bar where we see the character of Meg, played by lovely actress Barbara Payton. She's there selling cigarettes, and we see the character of Mr. Hackett, actor John Hoyt, who's there ordering cigarettes, seems interested in her, but she avoids his somewhat creepy advances. Well, later that night, she's heading for home, and she is reunited with Tris, and we see that they are former lovers. They're back together again, and he lets her know that he never planned to work with the feds. It was all just a big ruse in order for him to escape. And he tells her that he has plans to head to Mexico together. But first, he has to meet with his old partner. And at this time, we find out that the place that they're in together is bugged. Yep, the feds are listening to everything that's going on. So we cut over to the Secret Service, and we're introduced to Chief Gunby, played here by Russ Conway. He's there with Foreman, and they receive a visit from the character Hackett, who we discover is actually John Downey, another undercover agent. So again, these are the agents who are sort of working together behind the scenes. They're trying to bring down this counterfeit ring, and they're listening in to what's going on with the character Tris. Well, Tris goes to meet with his old partner, Sam Hooker, who we see as this washed-up drunk character. He's played by actor Douglas Spencer. Now, Tris wants his plates back so he can get back into the counterfeiting racket again, but he's furious to discover that Sam has apparently given them all away to cover his gambling losses. Well, Tris is furious, beats him around a while, almost strangling him to death. Finally, Sam gives Tris the name of Jack Sylvester as the person he sold the plates to. So Tris goes to meet with this Jack Sylvester character, actor James Todd. Now, he's the boss of this land investment business. Now, these two guys know each other, as Sylvester was previously a competitor of Tris in the counterfeiting business. Tris wants just to buy his plates back, but he needs the dough to get 'em. Cash on the line, Sylvester says to him, so Tris leaves to go get the money.
You know what I need? I need a nice, friendly safe. Forget it. I don't think we should risk anything like that. Safes can be real trouble.
Not if you know how to open them. Tell me, baby. What's the weekend take at that club of yours, huh?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Come on, tell me.
I don't know.
How much?
I
Tell me.
Around 17 or 18,000, but honey, I'm afraid.
To help?
No.
You love me, don't you?
Oh, you know I do, but can you get away with it?
Yeah, maybe with your help.
So later that night, they're parked outside of the club. Tris makes his way towards the door, but some cops see the car sitting there with Meg, and they stop and question her. Then they spot Tris. They chase after him, but he gets away. Meg, on the other hand, gets caught. However, the next day, Downey shows up and bails her out and gets a little bit sweet with her as they're driving together. Now, back at her place, Tris arrives. He finds out that this Downey character had bailed her out, and he gets angry. He's very jealous. However, he realizes that this guy might be able to help finance his deal to get those plates back. So he goes to track him down. He goes where he stays at, the Hotel Marjorie, and snoops around his room. And while there, looking through his stuff, he finds a case of cards, dice, and cash. Yeah, he's hit the jackpot. And he learns that the guy is a player. He's still not suspecting, though, that he's actually an undercover Fed. Now, Downey arrives back at his place, and Tris jumps him, gives him a bop for messing around with his girl, but then makes an offer. He could pay $25,000 and in return get $250,000 in excellent quality phony bills. Now, Downey seems reluctant, but eventually joins in, and they go to meet with this Jack Sylvester character. Downey is impressed by one of the fake bills. So a little bit later, at this very cool 40s-era drugstore, Hackett arrives, goes into a phone booth, and talks secretly with Gunny, updates him on what's going on. And let's just take a minute to admire how awesome these old places were. To step back in time to a place like this.
Go ahead, John. The deal is on. Delivery will be made at 12 noon tomorrow. Stewart and I will park on Fountain Avenue between Crescent Heights and Hayworth, north side of the street. This looks like the real thing.
We'll have the place staked out. Every man will be covered.
But don't close in until you actually see my money pass into the receiver's hands. That'll be the signal.
Right, Downey. When I see you hand over the money, that'll be my cue. My boys won't move until I tell them. Good luck.
The police get ready for this big stakeout, since they know from Downey that a counterfeit sale is going down. So they're all spread around and watching. You've got Agent Gunby dressed like a grocer. You got another agent like a guy mowing a lawn. Another agent is a newspaper man. It's great. And Tris and Downey arrive for the sale, and the suspense is great. There's also some really nice use of location footage for the scene. Yeah, Rob, we know. You love old movie location footage. Get on with it. Yeah, well, the guys arrive for this big sale. But it turns out it was only a test run. They don't actually have the counterfeit money, but they were just sort of testing Downey's loyalty. And sure enough, he's earned the trust of Tris. And they get chummy a little bit later over drinks.
You're in now, Hackett. The next trip will be the real thing. No more paper.
Okay, I'm ready when they are, but the sooner the better.
When do you deal, Tris?
As soon as I hear from Sylvester, I'll get a hold of you, don't worry.
Well, a little bit later, it looks like Downey's cover might be blown. He's at the club sitting by himself when a guy comes up. He's all friendly, refers to him as Downey, and tries to talk to him like somebody he used to know. But Downey, who is undercover here as Hackett, shuts the guy down and tells him, no, you got the wrong guy. So the guy leaves with his wife. They go and sit down, and he confides to her that he remembers Downey as Army intelligence, and I hope I didn't tip his hand or anything. And you guessed it, Meg overhears this. Well, she tells Tris about this, and he goes after Downey, angry. And they go for a drive together to get Downey's money out of the bank, and that's when he outs him as an agent with his gun. And he takes him to a cliffside by the beach, and he stops the car, and I think he plans to kill him and throw him off the edge. Now, Downey manages to kick the gun away, and there's a scuffle, and ultimately, Downey's able to overpower Tris. Takes him to the police station in Venice, where he's booked. Now, Downey calls Gunby, talks to him, and wants to continue with trying to take down Sylvester undercover. But he needs Gunby to pick up Meg, because she's the only one that could possibly blow his cover. So Downey meets with Sylvester. He mentions that Triss has been arrested, and they need to be careful, but they can go ahead with their deal. Now the phone rings, and it's great suspense, as it's Meg calling to talk to Sylvester. How will the film end? Will Downey bring down Sylvester and his nefarious counterfeiting schemes? Will Triss escape from prison and flee to Mexico with Meg? How will it end? Well, you need to see the end of the film for yourself. There's plenty of great suspense ahead, and the ending was really great. Well, let me offer some closing thoughts to wrap up the review. Trapped was released in 1949 by Eagle Lion Films. Eagle Lion Films, you say, Rob? I've not heard of that one. Well, neither had I, and if Wikipedia is to be believed, the background is that Eagle Lion Films was the name of two distinct but related companies out of the UK. In 1944, producer J. Arthur Rank started an American distribution company with that name to handle his British films. And after a number of changes, by 1950, it would become Eagle Lion Classics, and eventually would be acquired and merged into United Artists a year later. So, when I upload this review and get my customary copyright claim from YouTube for using really brief clips for the review, it'll likely be from United Artists. However, the film is also apparently in the public domain, so maybe I'll be okay this time. I do find some of the stories of the smaller studios to be interesting. You know, studios like Monogram Pictures and so on. I mean, not everything can be 20th Century Fox and Warner Brothers. Also, if you do a search for Eagle Lion Pictures, it returns some really neat results. Trapped was directed by Richard Fleischer, an excellent director responsible for many films you've probably heard of, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 1954, Fantastic Voyage from 1966, and even Soylent Green from 1973. Soylent Green is people! By the way, interesting side note, Richard Fleischer was the son of Betty Boop and Popeye animator Max Fleischer. Pretty cool. And you know, I love heist films, and I do love the man undercover films, and this was a really interesting spin on those genres. I've watched quite a few on this channel with the anti-hero and their schemes, like, you know, White Heat or The Killing, and I've noticed with these that usually the focus is on that central protagonist and his love interest, and that's sort of what drives the main narrative. You know, the Bonnie and Clyde formula. Sometimes the hero goes straight, sometimes he falls back into the world of crime, you know, but with this one, it was a little bit different, and it sort of alters your expectations a little, as the focus sort of shifts as we near the end of the film. Now, it's hard not to go into too much detail without dropping any spoilers, so you'll have to see for yourself what I'm talking about. But all of this to say is that I had in my head some expectations of where this film was going, and the film sort of subverted those expectations, particularly with Lloyd Bridges' character. But again, see the film for yourself, and you'll see what I mean. And speaking of Lloyd Bridges, he really does a great job here as the likable anti-hero of the story. You know, he's a very versatile actor, be it a more serious role like this one, or in a TV show like Sea Hunt, or even in sillier films like Airplane or Hot Shots. I think he's great regardless of the character he's playing, and he really nails it here as this counterfeiting criminal who's given another chance and essentially throws the opportunity away. And we know how things go like that in 1940s crime films. This was actually one of Lloyd Bridges' earliest roles, specifically as a leading man. Now, this film was also one of the first big roles for Barbara Payton, who was just getting her start in Hollywood. Now, my opinion, for whatever it's worth, is that she was a very gorgeous actress, but not necessarily a great actress. I mean, she's great as the attractive accomplice to Lloyd Bridges' character, but her acting didn't necessarily stand out that much to me. But whatever, it's just my opinion. Reading some of her background, her career would momentarily take off from here, as this was followed by a role in the film Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye in 1950 with James Cagney. However, you probably know about her life story. It was one of scandals and personal issues, and sadly her acting career was short-lived and ended in the early 1950s. She actually died of heart and liver failure at a very young age of 39 in 1967. I researched some of her background when I did my review of Bride of the Gorilla. Oh, man, yeah, that was a memorable movie. And her backstory, it really was a tragic one of drugs, alcohol, and bad life decisions. The Mysteries and Scandals show from the late 90s did an episode of her, and I have that linked below. And I have to make mention of John Hoyt, who is rapidly becoming one of my favorite actors from this classic era of Hollywood. You know, he's got that cool, stern, kind of creepy look to him. Not really the Cary Grant glamour, you know, and I think that's what I'm starting to like about him. You know, to put it simply, he doesn't necessarily look like a good guy, but that doesn't matter. He's played all sorts of roles, sometimes a hero, sometimes a villain. And I love how in films like this one, because of his appearance, at least to me, there's sort of an ambiguity to his character, in that, is he the villain here, you know, when he's getting fresh with Meg, or is he actually the undercover hero that we should be rooting for all along? You know, I like stuff like that. He might look a little sketchy, but at the same time, he's got this likability to him. And when we see his character in these dangerous situations of suspense, you know, we don't want him to get caught, because he seems like a nice guy. In any case, one of the main roles I remember him from is that of Dr. Boyce from The Cage, which was the first pilot episode of Star Trek from 1965. And his character there, a little bit reminiscent of Bones McCoy, you know, played by DeForest Kelley, but at the same time, as the Doctor in that show, he was also playing an older, more grandfatherly character, doling out the advice to the troubled Captain Pike over warm martinis. It's one of those things that I like to ponder when I watch a pilot like that. You know, what if Paramount had gone ahead and developed Star Trek as a show, but based on those characters instead? Really would have been fascinating, but I'm sorry, I'm being a nerd. Anyhow, John Hoyt, great actor. I'm going to start looking for more of his films, might even do a biography on him in the future. In any case, that's Trapped from 1949. It was an excellent crime film. And you know, in thinking more about it, I think I referred earlier to this film as a heist film, when technically it's more of a counterfeiting scam crime film, but whatever. I thought it was close enough thematically, had many of those same elements. You can let me know in the comments if I'm using the wrong words to describe this film. That's fine. Lloyd Bridges was really great as a counterfeiter returning to his trade. And I thought he was just awesome to watch in this film. And Barbara Payton was very lovely as his girlfriend, supporting him through his crazy crime schemes. And John Hoyt was excellent as that driven federal investigator trying to bring these criminals down. I really loved it all. There's action, excitement, and even some nice usage of location footage. It's an excellent film, and it's worth checking out.
Book him under another name. Just tell the newspaper boys he's a hitchhiker who tried to stick up. We don't want any publicity on this.
How would the name of Briggs do?
Oh, good as any. Agent in charge, Gunby, please.
It's my mother-in-law's name. I'd just like to see how it'd look on a police blotter.